This is Burn This Book, a podcast where we, Nicole and Eden, read a banned or challenged book twice a month and discuss its meaning, impact, and censorship to make it more accessible for all readers. Nicole isn't with us today. She has the flu. So wish her well. This week's book is Go Ask Alice by Beatrice Sparks, originally published as Anonymous, and it was published in 1971. And joining us today are two guests, Helen Anderson and Carrie Poulsen. Helen's calling in from Provo and Carrie's calling in from Salt Lake. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah. Go around and introduce yourselves and your connection to the book.
Should I go first?
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. My name's Helen. I grew up in the Midwest, and then I moved to Provo to go to BYU in the late 80s. And I have lived in Provo ever since. And I'm a mom to 4 grown kids. I'm an attorney. I'm a stand-up comic. I think you said we could plug anything we want to,
Yes.
right? So if you want, you can follow me on Instagram at Helen Anderson Comedy. But I know, Carrie, you're going to introduce yourself, but I just can I explain my connection to Carrie before I talk about
Sure.
Yeah. So Carrie and I, we had mutual friends in college, but we didn't know each other really well. She did happen to date the person I eventually married, and who I'm no longer married to. But Carrie and I, several years ago, got to know each other, and we've been very good friends since then. And Eden, I know you because you were my neighbor.
I got to put in there.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I want to throw in one thing there, Helen. You gave me my first invitation to Facebook. You were literally my first Facebook friend. And I have you to thank for, everything in my life that's come after that.
Iconic.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's around the time that we started. Our friendship kind of took off. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Eden, you for a long time, or for several years, lived in the house that I lived in this neighborhood before we moved to a different house. Anyway, so there's interconnections all over the place in this episode.
All connected. Yeah. Go for it, Carrie.
So I'm Carrie Poulsen. I was born and raised in Los Angeles area, variety of suburbs, and went to BYU in 1985. Just so placing myself in time and space. So I started junior high in 1979, graduated high school in 1985, which will become relevant later on when I talk about the book. And I've got 3 grown kids. I live in downtown Salt Lake now. I do all kinds of things, and I like books. And
she travels to Spain a lot. She's well traveled.
Now, in my middle age, I'm picking up a lot of things that I kind of let go of back, when. After when I had kids and stuff. And so I'm really enjoying, getting old and having cool friends like Helen who are also, enjoying life with an empty nest and all that.
Yeah. So Eden, you have that to look forward to. When you get to our stage of life, you can start doing a lot. Oh, you're already doing a lot right now, but there's even more. So my connection to the book is I first read it when I was in the 8th grade. I was living in Iowa. This would have been the early 80s, like 82, 83. I think it was my aunt who recommended it. I have an aunt who's my age, so she's more like a cousin. And so I think she's the one who told me about it, recommended it. I either borrowed it from her or from the library. What I remember is that it was something, that was kind of, well-known, talked about among teenagers. And it was known to be gritty, but it wasn't contraband. Like it wasn't, it was there for the borrowing, from any library. There were no adults saying, don't read it. I think it's because, adults saw it as a good thing because it was supposed to scare everyone away from drugs. So that's my, but I will say though, in addition to my connection, that's when I first read it. Then about a year later, I read Jay's Journal, which Beatrice Sparks also wrote. And, we'll talk about that later. And at the time, I didn't really question the authenticity of either book. Later, as an adult, I heard that they turned out to not be true. And then a few years ago, I read a book called Unmask Alice by Rick Emerson. And again, I won't go into a lot of detail on that yet, but I'll just say that made me realize just how connected both books and Beatrice Sparks are to where I live, Provo. So many connections. She's from here. Go Ask Alice was inspired somewhat by a teen that she met at a summer camp at BYU. Her other book was inspired by someone who lived in Pleasant Grove. All these things happened around me, and we'll talk about that later, but that strengthened the sort of like connection and my interest in the book. So it's literally close to home.
Literally, yeah. She died here in Provo at the ripe age of 90 something.
Yeah. In 2012, I think.
Yeah.
What
about you, Carrie?
I'm just gonna
So lay it all out.
Okay, so I was a little more about me. Grew up in a Mormon family, an LDS family, and was also going to an evangelical Christian private school in Los Angeles. And this was, I was there, late elementary through the end of junior high. So late 70s to early 80s. And from both sides, in the eyes of the Christian school, I was a cult member in need of saving. And I'm not going to say they were wrong. I mean, at this point, I have no religion whatsoever, but it was a strange thing to be, a little Mormon girl who, was a cult member who needed to accept Jesus into her heart as a personal Lord and Savior. But what they could all agree on is that Satan was coming for the kids, and there was a lot of talk in the school environment about, rock music and backmasking and all of these, like, largely for me, I was paying attention to it as it related to music. But, there was kind of the popular, I never encountered any of this, but, churches, youth groups gathering to burn record albums or, things like that. And on the Mormon side of it, my father was at that time a popular LDS speaker, speaking to youth groups about the evils of rock music, pop music. And so but the hard thing for me, one more hard thing for me being in that intersection of things, is that I was obsessed with music and culture of the late 60s as a junior high mousy little girl in the early 80s. And part of that was just being so aware of how enraged all of the adults in my world were about, like, wow, this actually sounds much more interesting than, than a lot of the kind of tepid, Christian pop music and some of the stuff that was kind of coming in, flowing into Mormonism. And I was obsessed with, in Los Angeles, there were, several really good, it's so funny to call them oldies stations because the late 60s weren't that long ago in the early 80s, but in my closet, literally, I had a life-size poster of Jim Morrison. Like, I was really fascinated with San Francisco and, the Doors and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and just the lyrics and the culture. And, and I was a good kid. I mean, I wasn't using drugs. I was a good, dutiful, oldest child of a, large Mormon family. But I was really, really fascinated by that. And so I knew I had the book, Go Ask Alice, on my mind because the name came from from a song. And I knew, from Jefferson Airplane. I mean, it was a song, and it was about drugs, and it was, based. I mean, that the title there came from Alice in Wonderland. But I knew that this book had that title because of its connection to 60s drug culture, which was super interesting to me, even though I was not a drug user. And I was also aware that it was, one of those books that was kind of being passed around in my junior high. But it wasn't like Helen said, I wasn't aware that it had ever been banned. It was just inappropriate, but like compared to like some of the other books that were being passed around, Flowers in the Attic, like when it finally got passed to me and I took it home and read it, I was so disappointed. Like it was just so boring. And I have to say, I didn't buy it. I had spent much of my life being gently taught, scolded, beseeched, pontificated to by adults my whole life. And I could smell a middle-aged woman trying to teach young people the evils of drugs and sex and rock and roll from a mile away. I thought it was the dumbest book. Seriously, I hated it. It felt so preachy, and it wasn't. There was a lot of references to having sex with boys when one was high on acid, but there was nothing remotely salacious about it. It just, to me, it felt like, and I kept a journal. I, wrote a lot, and so did a lot of my friends. And I just did not buy for a second that this was a real story. It just seemed so pat and so predictable. And I also immediately picked up on there's a Mormon vibe here. The girl refers to, like the first time she gets high, and I felt like I was swimming in the Great Salt Lake like I did as a child. And she talks about, when she comes around to, seeing the evils of her ways, or does she, talks about I wish I could go back and have my virginity and save myself for my husband. And I think family should be forever. And I think my dear grandparents are together forever. And I can't imagine having sex with a boy that I'm not going to want to love as my one and only. Like, it was so out of some young woman's manual in the Mormon tradition. And I just thought it was silly. And and then that was the end of that. I mean, like, it was, but also I was kind of like, I hated everything, like there were, but then a couple of years later, I read Jay's journal, which was given to me by a woman. This is so weird. The connection, who lived in Provo. I was living in Los Angeles, who was also like my dad, doing some like youth speaking about the evils of rock music. I found out years later that she was a neighbor. Like, she lived in the same neighborhood as Beatrice Sparks. And I'll never know if that was part of why she had this book that she was, giving to me. You really need to read this. And again, like, okay, cool. Young, teenagers doing interesting things. I read it. Didn't immediately make the connection between the same anonymous author, but it had that same preachy, like, this is not a teenage boy's writing. I mean, I didn't immediately go to a middle-aged woman, but like, this is dumb. Like, this is just dumb. And that was that, so never thought about those books again until many years later, when I was talking to Helen about, and she, who lived in Utah County, and at that time I lived in Salt Lake, and I somehow mentioned Jay's journal, or she did, I can't remember. Well, and she had some interesting information about, like, oh yeah, that actually was, I mean, I also knew that it was supposed to be Utah based, but you said that you remembered like a rock opera.
Well, it's funny. I remember you telling me about the rock opera. So one of us.
No. You told me about I bet it's in our Facebook.
I'm pretty sure you told me, but either way.
No, I did not know that. You knew that. I swear.
So someone knew about it.
I loved that. All of a sudden now I'm an adult, I'm living in Utah. All of this is like, in the past, like I don't have a dog in this fight anymore. What the hell? Like, where did these books come from? By this time, it was pretty clear that they were not true teen journals.
Mm-hmm. Wait, what is this rock opera?
So
take it away,
so
Helen.
sometime in the 90s, maybe I'm the one who knew about it first, I don't know, but someone at BYU produced a rock opera called, it's like Something Under the Sun, that was the name, and it was the story of Jay's journal. It was about the boy and the family that Jay's journal is based on, and how hard and cruel it was that this book was written about him, and kind of how it affected his family. And neither one of us saw it, but I did somewhat recently check the Daily Herald, and I found that there was a review of this rock opera. And so it did happen. We don't know who saw it and who told each other about it. But this was
written by the brother of.
Yeah, I think it was written by the brother, and
the brother of Jay.
Of Jay.
Yeah, the brother of Jay. Of Alden Barrett, and this was around the time that word was starting to get out that these books were fictional, or that Go Ask Alice was fictional, and that Jay's journal was very much embellished by Beatrice Sparks. So that was right around the time that I was first hearing that, oh, those are all made up. And I was kind of amused, like, oh, that's, I guess it makes sense. But then it was years later that this other book came out called Unmask Alice. But would you like me to summarize Go Ask Alice real quick?
Sure.
Okay, yeah, so it was published in the 70s. It's purportedly a real diary about a teen drug addict. She runs away from home. Then she tries to get clean. And spoiler alert, right? We're not worried about spoilers here. No. Okay. So she tries to get clean, but she suffers from flashbacks. And she's also harassed by other drug addicts that she used to hang out with. And just as things are starting to get better in her life, she has this promising boyfriend, and suddenly she dies at the end of the book. And it's possibly an overdose. It's not really clear. And also, while she was on the run, while she was a runaway, she went through hardship. She experienced some terrible things, including rape and prostitution and things like that. And overall, it's intended to scare people away from drugs. Yeah. And it's written as though, it's written as though it's an actual diary, but what we know now is it was fabricated.
Yeah. Yeah, the audiobook I listened to did not even have a disclaimer that it was fiction. Like, this is
really,
it had the statement like, this is a true diary of a teenage girl.
Yeah.
And I think there are newer editions that have the fictional disclaimer. And so, like, this is probably the first book that I'll say any copy of Go Ask Alice and Jay's Jungle and any of her other journal books that don't have a fictional disclaimer, I would say let's ban those, because it is, it's not being upfront about what it is. Which is false. And
it's much more interesting now as a cultural artifact if it's presented with the full story.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. And you really should read Unmask Alice, which really does put it into context. It's like
Helen
that.
gave me a copy. Yeah.
Oh, she loaned me a copy too. No, seriously, that was so much. Like I was so that was like such a missing piece of a lifelong, like not dead yet, but like I've been thinking about that for years. Like what was the deal? And it is like truth is so much stranger than fiction. The story of Beatrice Sparks is bonkers, like crazy and enraging, like absolutely. I if what is, if this book is telling the story straight, these books absolutely need to be published with the real story, because real people. And you know what? I don't want to give any spoilers away to anybody that might read Unmask Alice, because it's definitely it. I really loved reading it without knowing exactly where the Jay's Journal story was going. Like it's really dramatic. And it's a much better story than either of these. And she wrote a bunch of other diaries of a girl with, whatever,
unplanned pregnancy.
Yeah. But the story of the author is the real story. These are just weird little cultural artifacts now that have a small place in that story. So that's.
And I hope we get to talk more about the author, but I do want to share my thoughts about the book. They're a little bit different from Carrie's. Like when I first read it, so for Carrie, it was obvious that it was, made up. Some middle-aged woman made it up. To me, that wasn't obvious.
Well, no, I don't want to sound like I'm saying that I didn't believe.
You were suspicious. You were suspicious.
Certain.
Yeah.
I was suspicious. Yeah.
Okay.
That's more.
Yeah, accurate. I didn't mean to put words in your mouth, but I mean, I didn't have the same level of skepticism or whatever. I read it, and for me, I was Mormon, so I already wasn't planning to drink or do drugs or anything like that, and I didn't have a strong curiosity about it. So the book, the message didn't really influence me. But I will say I found it interesting because, I'm always interested in other people's stories. And I probably found it validating because, I'm someone who doesn't get to go to all the parties and I don't get to do all these things. And now I feel like, oh, that's good. It's, it's a good thing I'm not doing those things. What I wish it had done, but it didn't do, is I wish it had relieved me of FOMO, because again, I had fear of missing out. I was, I could never go to the parties. And, I'd like to think that reading Go Ask Alice made me feel better about that, but it didn't. I still felt very left out of all the fun that everyone else was having. But I didn't.
So sad.
I didn't question its authenticity at the time, and I'm not sure that it was important to me then, because, like Carrie said, there were already a lot of books with gritty teen stories. Whether it was Judy Blume or teens, sex, drugs, whatever. So even if I'd known it was fictional, I'm not sure it would have made much difference to me at that time. It was much later, when I learned more about Beatrice Sparks, that I got more upset about the fact that she had made this up. But can I say though, I read it again recently to get ready for the podcast, and there are a few things that stuck out to me that didn't really, that stuck out to me as an adult.
Yeah.
One was the fat phobia. There are so many references to, oh, I've gained weight, I need to lose weight. Oh, I'm so fat. I'm counting calories. And actually, some of the things that from the book that had stuck out, that I remembered, over the years were those things. And like when when I reread it, I thought, oh yeah, I remember reading about how she started counting calories and she ate bacon that one day. I mean, I was so impressionable at that time, and I'd already internalized, some fat phobia from so many sources in the 70s and 80s that that's one of the things that I remembered from that book for many years, and then stood out to me recently as, oh, that's so unhealthy. I if it were to be banned for something, it would be, I'd say ban it for that. But
yeah.
But the other thing is, I was struck by how little impact the sexual assault experiences she had.
Yeah.
It's like,
yes.
As a teen,
just happened, and it's like, oh,
it was,
I was raped last night, but that's what happens when you do drugs.
Exactly.
And it moves on.
Right. And as a teen, someone who had, with very little life experience, someone who hadn't had sex, it's, at the time it didn't faze me at all that was weird. Now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is so obviously made up, because someone who experienced that would be a lot more traumatized. They would not be treating it so lightly. Like you said, oh, this is what happened last night. Good thing we got out of there,
Yeah.
And then, okay. And then when it comes to the writing style, when I read it now, recently as an adult, for sure, the writing style sounded very immature and like, gosh, this sounds so made up. But also, when I kept a journal around that time, and I think Go Ask Alice has a lot of similarities to my style of writing in my journal at the time. And I don't know if that means either maybe Beatrice Sparks was skillful enough to write in a way that was kind of authentic for a teen, or if it influenced me. Like in my journal, maybe I was influenced by Go Ask Alice and say, today was a bad day, just weird stuff, repeating adjectives over and over. So I don't know. I don't know if it influenced me in that way, or if it happened to be, there happened to be a lot of teens who were like that. But anyway, so those are my thoughts from reading it again as an adult.
Yeah. So this was my first time reading it, and obviously having some of the background already. So yeah, just went in already with a bias of, all right, like this is a fake book. It's not a real book. But I also came off the heels of reading The Diary of Anne Frank.
Oh, what a
and to
what
have
a pair.
like, yeah, what a pair to have like read that. And because I think I was very, I don't know, I kind of like bounced between like the surface level and diary entries and the really in-depth ones. But like I felt like all of Anne's were just like pure depth, like just so introspective. And perhaps it was because, she was just stuck in an attic, had nothing else to do.
But also it was heavily edited. We do know that now. I mean, her father, like, but I don't know what the result of that was, if the boring stuff was,
I did read an unabridged version, because I know that there were previously, her father had like edited out some of her, because she mentioned Attraction to Girls, and so her father had originally edited that out.
Okay, interesting.
Unabridged, yeah. But anyway, but besides this being my first encounter with Go Ask Alice is from a stand-up comic, Paul F. Tompkins. He has a little bit where he said something along the lines of like, it was so obvious that it was just cops writing propaganda for kids, because she starts with acid and then later talks about, oh man, I can't wait to smoke marijuana.
Yeah.
And so like it was just like, so yeah, it was funny enough for Paul F. Tompkins to make a bit out of that.
That's so funny you mentioned that, because I've been thinking, could this work as the subject of a bit? Could I write jokes about this? And I haven't tried yet. I know someone already has. So
You could take another angle.
There's
maybe I can't. Maybe I can.
There's plenty. Yeah.
So Eden, is someone actually proposing banning it, or is it being challenged, or like what put this on your list?
Yeah, so we put any books that have been banned or challenged since the American Library Association has started tracking bans in they started in the 90s. So this has made it onto the lists. And so before we actually look up why it was banned, do you guys have any guesses?
Well, my guess.
I wanted to
ahead,
add, it was in Unmasked Alice talks a lot about that, and that was part of its popularity, is that it was being pushed from both, like it had the benefit of being banned sometimes, and also the benefit for being too dark and too gritty, but also the benefit of it being pushed on kids because it's so dark and so gritty. And so people that were inclined to buy it or to want to read it because it was banned had that going for it. And those who really needed to get this heavy, true, dark stuff in the hands of those who could benefit, also, like it benefited from being banned, and also not always being banned. Like what you're talking about, just its unbelievable sales number. I mean, it was, just one of the most popular young, books for young people of all time, and that it's a, sometimes banned status probably boosted that.
Yeah, my guess is that if it was banned, it was because of the language and the mature themes and references to sex and things like that. But if it were to be banned, I think it should be banned for other reasons, because it's just so poorly written as a fake journal.
Yeah.
And the fat phobia, like I said.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just like reading about the critical response here, and yes, exactly what you two said, of just the content. People wanted to ban it for the content. Other people thought it was a great anti-drug novel, and so they wanted to fight for it to stay in the schools and libraries.
So is this where we can talk about Beatrice Sparks and what led up to this?
Beatrice.
Okay.
Let's do it. Really quick before we dive into that. As middle-aged women, do you feel inclined to write fake accounts of teenagers?
If I knew how much it would sell, yeah. Oh my gosh, there's your retirement for you.
Yeah, totally.
Because she's one of those. I guess if there's anything positive come out of this, it shows what a woman after 50 can do. There are a few success stories out there about this woman, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or someone who did something very big after 50. And I think she was I think she was in her 50s or not too far
that sounds
away from
right.
50 when she landed on this business idea, and it worked really well for her, except that she did not get credit for Go Ask Alice, and that I think really bummed her out for a long time.
Yeah.
But I other than if there wasn't money in it, I wouldn't write fake teen journals. What about you guys?
It's not on my list of things I want to do before I die, but especially after reading Unmasked Alice, the book about the author, I feel a little hemmed in, because I didn't know her personally. I know, she's got kids, grandkids, family. She's got a heritage. I don't want to say things that I don't know for a fact, but I feel so angry when I think about her success and how she gained it, and what was lost, and just that it's such a weird story. It's such a weird story, and it's just and from my again, like, I don't want to step on toes, or, I mean, like, everybody lives their own lives, and we've all got our own paths. But I have grown up just super sensitized to people making shit up to control other people, I guess. I mean, telling stories that are not accurate to control people's behavior. And this, again, I don't know what your audience is like. I don't, you cut this all out, but I feel like it's a really ugly story of how people can manipulate, individuals, groups, cultures for fame and fortune, or some, even if it's not as just absolutely, clear cut as that fame and fortune, for a sense of power, for a sense of influence. Ooh, I found the key. I'm going to drive the narrative here. And this was all part of a bigger cultural wave. She knew a hot trend when she saw it, and she jumped on it, and stayed, tried to ride that wave as long as she could. And
yeah,
I'm so tired of that. And it's like, it sucks that's the story of a middle-aged woman, finding success in an era when that was hard to do. Like, I hate that was the story. Give me all the stories of older women pulling together truth and justice and like, yeah.
I know, that's
like,
kind of how I
this
felt
is
about
a
like
bummer for
Elizabeth
me.
Holmes, where I'm like, shoot, like an amazing CEO and it turned out to be a scam. And
another comparison that comes to mind for me, and I won't do it deep. I could rant about this, but maybe I'll save that for the end. But I think she's very similar to Tim Ballard.
And absolutely.
Yeah, but I'll get into that a little bit later. Can I just give you like a little bit of background of Beatrice Sparks? Is that okay? And what kind of led to Go Ask Alice and then Jay's Journal?
Yes.
So Sparks grew up, she actually was born in Logan, but then moved around. I think she moved to San Francisco as a young girl, or a teen or young adult. She grew up poor. She got married, had kids. She and her husband made some money from business, but they were basically social climbers. Like, I think there appears to be this drive for her to be important in some way, to have influence. She tried to be a writer different ways, and at various times, for various reasons, she claimed to be a professional therapist, or in one way or another, gave fake credentials for different kinds of things to try to advance her writing career. And at one point in the 70s, she wrote for a multi-level marketing company in Utah, along with Stephen Covey. Little fun fact. So she wrote content for this MLM, and she met Art Linkletter through that. He was a well-known TV personality at the time. And that MLM fizzled out, but she maintained a connection with Linkletter. And in the 60s and 70s, teens were using drugs and running away in high numbers. This was, you're familiar with that whole era. And so that was in some ways kind of the beginning of the war on drugs, what would later become the war on drugs. And around that time, Linkletter's daughter died in a way that was related to drugs. Sparks got the idea to publish a teen drug addict's diary, and she somehow had Art Linkletter's blessing or encouragement or support or something like that at the time. I think later he kind of changed his position on some of these things, but that is kind of what led to her writing Go Ask Alice. And in the book Unmask Alice, it talks about how there were lots of clues that publishers ignored that should have indicated that she made up this story. But it was just too exciting to ignore. And so they turned a blind eye to it, and they sold millions of copies of books. But then when it comes to Jay's, what led to Jay's journal is, so for Go Ask Alice, the publishers recommended that they not put her name on it as the author because it's supposed to be a true story. They told her they need to call it by anonymous or something like that. And then it goes on to be very popular. It gets lots of credit as well as criticism, but it sells millions, and she doesn't get the satisfaction or the attention she doesn't get the credit for being the one who discovered these papers that, formed the diary. And I think that ate at her. And so then a few years later, a mom approached her about her son's diary. And this is where, Go Ask Alice, it's a fraud. But like Carrie, I get so angry at Beatrice Sparks because of what happened with Jay's journal. So what happened is Jay's journal is based on an actual story. It's a very sad story about it. A young man named Alden Barrett who suffered from depression. He lived in Pleasant Grove. He was a good student. He competed in debate, excelled at that. He was raised Mormon. He lost his faith, fought with his parents about that. He was anxious about going to Vietnam. He wanted to marry a girl, but her parents tried to distance them. All of those things kind of culminated. And at one point he took his life, which, I mean, and this is covered very well in the book Unmask Alice, and it is just so heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking, especially after raising teens and knowing just how vulnerable they are at that stage of life, and he didn't make it. And so it was devastating for the family, of course, but he did keep a diary while he was a teenager. And there is one mention in the diary of him using a Ouija board one time while he was at boarding school. And that was it.
Like, so who didn't?
Yeah, right. Who didn't do it? At least once. Yeah, at least once. And so years after his death, his mom was still trying to process and cope. And she started to hear that Beatrice Sparks was connected to Go Ask Alice, that book. And so Alden Barrett's mom thought maybe something that can come out of her son's journal is maybe Beatrice can write a similar or can publish his journal, and it'll help parents of kids who are depressed. Well, she scooped that up, and she took maybe a few actual entries from that journal, and then she invented the rest, and she inserted all kinds of crazy things about the occult, satanic worship, drinking blood, sacrifices, animal sacrifices. All of this she made up, and she didn't have any further discussion with the family. Next thing you know, it's published, and the mom is hearing about it. And even though Beatrice changed the name, everyone in the community knows who it's about. And so just added, insult to injury on top of what was already a tragedy. It just turned it into, I mean, I can't even imagine going through that. The shame, the embarrassment, and ultimately this is what started what's now called satanic panic of the 80s that Carrie and I lived through, where suddenly there's a whole industry of speakers, public speakers, and law enforcement, and everyone jumping onto this bandwagon about how rock music is full of satanic messages. And it really does seem to have started with this book, Jay's journal. So so that's what I think is so tragic here, is that this poor family in Pleasant Grove has just been milked and embarrassed and humiliated by this. So,
and in the grief of their son.
Yeah. And so we could talk more about the satanic panic, but I just want to point out this. Now the satanic panic is laughable. Like, I remember growing up and being told Dungeons and Dragons is evil.
We have an episode on that.
Yeah. And, in rock music, if you play it backwards, it has these messages and things like that. And now it's all laughable. Like, everyone plays Dungeons and Dragons. Everyone does role-playing games and things like that. No big deal. But it reminds me of the recent obsession with sex trafficking, which has been stirred up by Tim Ballard and Operation Underground Railroad and Sound of Freedom, which has also turned out to be, at least Tim Ballard's, I mean, obviously there's sex trafficking that's happening that needs to be addressed, but not at the scale, or not, not in the way that OUR, tried to make it seem. And a lot of people have donated money to this organization that has turned out to really not be doing a whole lot for sex trafficking,
And if anything, creating a demand demand for underage children with their own coups. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I see a lot of similarity between like Beatrice Sparks and Tim Ballard. I mean, they're both kind of con artists. I hope I'm not saying something that will get your podcast sued. Sorry.
No, not at all. Yeah. I think it's as you were telling this story, it makes me think of Catch Me If You Can, who he is a con artist. And so, yeah, I think this fits the definition of a con.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
multiple cons.
Yeah. I mean, and Tim Ballard, I think a lot of the information, that was part of the stories he told, I think were exaggerated or made up, or he kind of created the problem that he then, would talk about. So, and Beatrice Sparks, she faked her credentials. And so I think they could both be called con artists.
Yeah.
And they're both Mormon. They're both local. And this is, and one more little thing that connects them is they both have a connection to Russell Ballard. So Russell Ballard was a leader in the Mormon Church, passed away recently, but he was the president of the Family Achievement Institute, which is the MLM that Beatrice Sparks first started writing for.
Oh.
And he also was a mentor to Tim Ballard. And when Tim Ballard's image was what really kind of cracked his whole image, was when a statement was made trying to distance Russell Ballard from Tim Ballard. There no family relationship there, just a coincidence with their last names. But apparently there was some type of mentorship relationship there that later, the Russ Ballard tried to distance himself from. So that's just some interesting similarities between these personalities and their legacy. They have similar legacies, I think.
That is interesting. Yeah, everything you said there felt very Utah.
Yes, it's
MLMs.
Right. It feels like it's so close to home,
Yeah, Carrie, do you have thoughts around that?
No, 100%. I mean, this is, and it has been fun now as an adult. I've just, mostly with Helen, but, a couple other friends too, who have had other ways of connecting, like some of these trends in our youth with some of the hard realities, that we've come across as as adults, dealing with these books, and just kind of this, the ideas that spin off from there in conversations, and just, and yeah, Helen said it all right there, 100% behind everything she said. And really, the book, the Unmask Alice, is the book that, you shouldn't be able to read Go Ask Alice or Jay's Journal without reading that book, or at least,
it should be required.
Some kind of really long, detailed introduction that, that explains what you're about to read. Because that's, like I said, that's
a broken part, a community. Yeah,
putting those in cultural context. And I also want to say it, talking about motives and con artists, I can see how she very well may have started out feeling like, yeah, on the one hand, she's this very driven, very like, she really wants to, to break through and have some success, and how she could maybe trick herself into justifying, well, okay, these aren't really my credentials, but if this is what I have to do to get this important work out there because kids are dying, like how that can kind of be a slippery slope. You can convince yourself that the ends justify the means, if that's how you see it, and that she may really have just gotten, caught up in her own web of lies because, well, this is very important work that's coming, in the same way that, I know a lot less about Tim Ballard, but I can think of a lot of people who just probably got too sucked up into success to want to look too closely at what the real cost was. And again, I don't know her, but it's just such an interesting story. And I've been meaning to, I want to email the author of that book. Hey, so, he's, journalist in Portland or Seattle, who has no ties, as far as I can tell, to Utah, and just thank him for resolving some of these questions for some middle-aged ladies in Utah who had to grow up with this. So
yeah, we're his two biggest fans, and he doesn't know who we are. Maybe he'll listen to this podcast.
Actually, logging on right now is I just had a funny intrusive thought where maybe in like 5 years another book will come out called Unmasking Unmask Alice, and it turns out that was all made up.
I'm there for it.
It could be. Yeah. And just to Carrie's point, it's human nature to think you have good intentions, and we can easily fool ourselves. So if that happened, Eden, I would have to admit that I got caught up in my good intentions of wanting to spread the truth about Go Ask Alice.
Yeah, definitely.
Who knows what really is the truth?
Yeah.
But like I say, I am hesitant. I know how I felt putting this all together, and even as a young person, I've got issues about feeling like people are trying to control people with stories. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that was my reaction to, my desire to make sense of this, this crazy, weird time that I grew up in, and just this sense all around me that the devil can't hurt you if you don't believe in it. Like, what's the this is the problem. Everyone is so focused on proving that evil is real. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I 100% admit that, I'm just speaking from my own personal, emotional place on this. And I, maybe we've all got all the stories, man. That's hard stuff. We're all trying to make sense of our own lives, and which is part of why it's so fun to talk about this, because those books were really so representative for me of what is going on? Why this is guys, this isn't real. Like teenage boys aren't visited by demons named Raoul, and they're not drinking blood in cemeteries and writing about it, in this golly gosh darn, come on, what's real?
It would at least be written in runes, not in plain English. Yeah.
And another thing that Unmasked Alice does is it covers very well how much everyone believed this at the time. And it compiles all kinds of news stories from the Daily Herald. The Daily Herald did like a 7-day expose, or in-depth story. And all of these news outlets, they referred to the true story behind all of this as though it was actually true. Like they accepted that there was a teen in Pleasant Grove who got caught up in Satan worship and took his life, and that's what triggered all, or that's part of this new movement. It was just so accepted, and no one did any fact checking, and so it's so easy to see now as, how did anyone believe this? But it was accepted. It was just so normalized that this is what's happening. Even the student newspaper, the independent student newspaper at BYU, so this is the counterculture newspaper, wrote stories about how there's this teen in Pleasant Grove who was involved with satanic worship and blah blah blah, and like no one questioned it. We need to question things more. Like, it's that, I guess that's my takeaway, is everyone needs to be questioning things more.
Definitely.
But Carrie, do you want to talk about how the connection of rock music with, evil, like from Jay's Journal and the Satanic Panic, how you experienced that as a teen?
Carrie, yeah, you said you had a picture of a poster of Jim Morrison in your closet. Was that in secrecy, or was it because
yes,
that was only where you?
It was in secrecy. I was afraid I'd have to take it because it was cool when I found like it was, and I brought it to BYU with me too. Like I had it for years, and I had it up. I had it up in my dorm wall in Hilleman Hall's Stover. If anybody happens to be familiar with that, but I mean, my dad was well known in certain circles for speaking very strongly, and wrote a book about how the adversary is using popular music to turn the youth away from a path of righteousness, and didn't talk about burning records or burning books, but it was definitely like, we are under siege. There is an army, there's a struggle, here on earth as it is in heaven, of good versus evil. And so, but again, kind of getting this at school too. And just like just deer in the headlights was kind of how I felt. Like, this can't, like, and the irony that, like, I'm hearing this same message that, like, Satan is trying to reach the youth through books and through music and film, all, from these two different groups who are also pointing at each other going, but we, we know what's true. No, we know what's true. Like, and I think that's part of why I was just so sensitized to, like, it matters. Did this happen or not? Did this goofy book, like, I just had to kind of question everything, because I felt like I was, I try not to be too dramatic, but like it was like, I suffered from that for a long time, just feeling like this can't all be real. Like, so is it me? Like, am I just so limited or so bad or so, that I can't see that this book is a great gift to the youth, or that I can't see, I just want to live my life. I don't want to be I don't want to be a part of an army for good or evil. I don't want to read books about made up suffering. Like, like they're real problems, and these problems are not speaking to me. Like, let me read my books and let me listen to my records and let me put up my posters. But I didn't feel that I had room to do that as a kid. And that's the nice thing about being old, is you can do
yeah.
read whatever books you want. No. So yeah, the whole theme of banned books has always been super interesting, to me, for the same reason that, burning records and just, and it's not always like, adults doing it to the kids, but that's how I experienced it in the 80s. That was definitely, one panic after another. And, we've got to save the youth. And it just, didn't feel right to me then. And it doesn't feel right to me now. And so.
And, I think you'll find a lot of, like-minded teens today, Carrie. Had you grown up in this era? Because it's like reading a bunch of news stories of teenagers who are creating their own banned book clubs after a committee of parents have banned books from their school.
Yeah.
Speaking out against banned books. I mean, the sister of my co-host, she made it onto the Bluest Eye Toni Morrison Wikipedia page because she did a sit-in at her school. Actually,
Wow.
we found that out while we were recording that podcast, because we were like looking up reasons why it was banned, and like, Camille.
Oh, interesting.
In this Wikipedia page.
Interesting.
So like, so very much like you as a teenager, with like the power of the internet behind kids these days is
what we could have done with the internet.
Yeah.
No, I talk about this with my kids all the time. Like, I am envious. I don't know how you feel about this, Helen, but like, I never find myself saying like, oh, things were better when I was a kid. Like, I just think, like, if I could have been born 20 years later, I think, there's no time in the past I would ever want to live in, but I might gamble on the future, maybe, when I just, my kids are in their late 20s and two, 3 kids, late 20s to early 30s. And I'm just so happy for them at the, just the much more free flow of information. And, I mean, there's, pluses and minuses, but yeah, I am hopeful for the future, but it's great, lovable, okay, and yeah.
I guess one kind of devil's advocate question.
Ooh, we love those.
Speaking from the perspective of the people banning books these days, not necessarily this particular book, because of because of previously mentioned reasons. Like, I wonder what, like, I could see some book banners using similar arguments for the books that they're banning today, of like, this is made up, it's not even real fiction. Why like put these characters through this type of suffering? Why expose my kids this early to this kind of material? And I lost track of my other reasons, but like, what would you say to those book banners, comparing books that are being banned today to, I mean,
yeah, that's always no, it's, I think the answer is always going to be in like in a conversation, not in a decision. Like, it's the balance. Like, in the natural, I mean, humans, we're part of the natural world, but like if you had only one type of organism, it could not survive. Like we live in a community. We have to have differing opinions, and we're never going to solve it. There's no one right way. So yeah, I mean, I guess ironically, that's like, it's its own answer. Like everybody should express what they feel is important and then move ahead, and yeah, it's now I guess, I mean, the trouble, comes when you're talking about, like public, I mean, shared, taxpayer entities. Like if we're all paying into this library or this school, how come you get a say and I don't? And, there are people who would, I mean, I can just hear the, the libertarian argument always, well, that's the problem with, any kind of collective, whatever, everything's got to be private so people can just make their own decision. Well, that's a cop out. Like, no, I mean, I just think the answer is like, just because something is hard doesn't mean it's bad. Like, just because conflicts are a bummer and feel like a waste of time doesn't mean they shouldn't be respected. Like boy, that's a slippery answer. I'm okay with the idea that other people see this very, very differently from me, and I've gone to meetings for that reason, and marches for that reason, and negotiation sessions for that reason. That's what humans do. It's okay that's hard, and that some people want to ban books is just fine, because that leads to the next conversation and the next conversation. And I can't banning books. That sort of is dumb and counterproductive. So yeah, it's all in the conversation. It's all in the conflict. I like what I like, but that doesn't mean that's what everyone should like. And yeah, I'm just repeating myself now. But what do you think, Helen?
Well, this is a difficult question. I think if someone's intention behind banning books is to protect children from difficult ideas, I think they need to know that we shouldn't underestimate the ability of children, young adults to process and get value, and maybe things they need to know and to understand, to develop empathy and a lot of other good things. But that makes me wonder, well, is there a line that I would draw? Is there a line that where I would say, something should be banned? And I will say that when it comes to propaganda and misinformation, I would like to ban some of those things. So I kind of can sympathize, I guess, with book banners, in that I do think at a certain point, books can be, I mean, like take Birth of a Nation, the movie, that full of racism and perpetuating ideas that are harmful to other people, marginalized people. I can sympathize with book banners when I think about the harm that can come from media like that. So it's hard to draw. I mean, it's hard to say I would never ban anything, or that it's, I think there could be, I just don't know what that point is, but I guess I can sympathize. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I sympathize with like the fear that parents feel, and like books and media are the tangible things that I can control when the rest of my world as a parent feels out of my control.
How old are your kids?
They're 5 and almost 2.
Okay.
So young kids.
Yeah.
But I found, like, kind of similar to what you said earlier, Carrie, about Go Ask Alice and Jay's Journal now being these like cultural time capsules and icons in their own way. And it makes me think of, like, to your point, Helen, of how Disney, with some of their older movies, have put like a disclaimer up front to, like, in a way preserve that cultural icon. Yeah, movies and TV shows are interesting. They're also not being shown in public schools or libraries. But yeah, the stance that Nicole and I always take is, like, you typically have a librarian or an English teacher to walk you through some of these difficult books. And, like, I remember the times that I read books in high school and I'm like, I have no idea what this means, you know? And other times where, like, a teacher would be like, okay, well, this means this. And me getting a lot out of that description or explanation or something like that. But yeah, I definitely, like, it's hard to be a parent because, like, you do want the best for your children. And kind of, like, if you don't stop and think about it for a moment, it's very easy to go down any route that's like, protect the children. Cool. I'm on board, you know?
And, I think that's something that there's a lot of, I mean, like, person to person, a lot of different ways to look at that, and, culture to culture, and generation to generation, community to community. And again, for me, just going back, like, good thing we're all different. Good thing there's lots of different ways to do things that are okay. Like, I always just tell my kids, like, it's okay to like different things. It's okay to be the strict parent. It's okay if that's genuinely how you are and how you feel, and it's it's okay to be the open parent if you're willing to have to have conversations and to not. Yeah. But yeah, it's hard. But just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Throwing yourself into the discussions again and again and again.
K-pop Demon Hunters is a big thing in our house right now.
I'm sure it is. We're going up, up,
yep.
up.
No one knows the words.
I have a 2-year-old grandbaby, and I hear that is her absolute favorite music. Or, like, she asks for songs by name at age 2, and has dances.
Amazing.
and yeah.
Yeah, this
awesome.
This movie was our first instance of my daughter realizing that we don't like the same things. She'll be like, Mom, do you like the song? I want to listen to Soda Pop. And I'm like, I don't want to listen to that. I don't like it. She's like, you don't like it? Mom, why don't you like Soda Pop? But just, like, teaching her, yeah, we can like different things. And, you still love me and I still love you.
Way to go.
Yeah.
Eden, do you think if your kids want to read Go Ask Alice or Jay's Journal, is there a certain age where you wouldn't want them to read it? Or would you put any kind of limitation or caveat or anything like that? Assuming it still has any appeal to anyone in 5-10 years. It may not. Book banning may be unnecessary because some of these things might just take care of themselves because it just, everyone loses interest because it's so outdated and
comical, laughable. Yeah. Everyone's making the great Helen Anderson stand-up comic has a great routine on it.
Yes. It's like Hot Pockets, but I'm going to be talking about Go Ask Alice. And, no one will believe it anymore.
I think I would definitely wait till high school, and I think that's like the majority of where books are being banned. And definitely I would have a conversation before I handed it to them, or, like, if I saw them checking it out at the library, I was like, oh, just so you know, it says it's true, it's not true. And we'll talk about it later after you're done reading. I'd love to hear what you think, Having that conversation.
I talking about these particular books, when I read them and they were only 10 years old, they sounded so corny and old timey that I just can't imagine. I mean, they're already comedy, you know, like there's, I don't think, you know, from here on out, anybody's going to, you know, they'll just be humorous.
Yeah.
Kind of like, oh gosh, what was the other kind of weird, sort of like not really religious, but kind of religious adjacent advice for women. It was actually written by an LDS woman.
Feminine
No.
Mystique.
No.
Oh, no, not that one.
That was the about like how to behave in a childish way to please, stomp your feet.
Right. You're right. It's not Feminine Mystique. It's I know what you're talking. That's what I was trying to think of.
You know the one I'm talking about. It'll come.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Like we in even though it was probably contemporary with Go Ask Alice, like it wasn't that, it wasn't older. I remember reading that with friends, like when we were in junior high, as like comedy performance, like they were so corny and so belonging to another era, and we would just read them out loud in these dramatic, like nobody needs to ban certain books, like they'll just not stand the test of time,
Fascinating Womanhood. Fascinating Womanhood. Yes. That's what it was.
Well, now I'm gonna look this up.
Yeah, I never read it, but you're by the time
child. Oh, I'm so sorry. Don't.
In the 80s, it was already. Yeah, it was already. I hadn't read it, but everyone was already talking about how silly it was, how embarrassing it was, and so some of these ideas just die out on their own. And
yeah. Oh, yes. Give me your address after this, and I will send you a copy. Every time I see one at a thrift store, I buy it because I'm afraid someday they'll disappear from the earth. And it's really the weirdest, funniest, craziest. But when I was a teenager, people were still getting it as a funny, like
non-ironic
gift. Like from elderly aunts were still giving it as high school graduation presents and stuff in the 80s. So certain books will live on, but not as the authors intended. So
well, sweet.
You can thank me later.
Any last I'm thanking you right now. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you in advance.
Yes,
sure. Fascinating.
Oh, well, let me just. Yep. So before we go, let me just say, when it comes to who saw that rock opera, I don't know. That's the funny thing about memory is sometimes it's easy. But so one of us saw that rock opera. It was a rock opera about. It was by Alden Barrett's brother. And Alden Barrett is the subject, that Jay's Journal was based on.
Helen, you told me about it. This is not up for debate.
I will accept it. Just
in our
just for the sake of our friendship, I will accept that your memory is correct. But that's something that's so fascinating about memory too. Is just how different.
For sure.
Yeah, but anyway, it's another funny little tidbit that fits into this whole puzzle, that this poor family tried to turn this into a musical, basically trying to express how hurt they were by this book. So it's worth looking at. I would love to. I remember trying to find some recording or something. I would love for that to be produced again. I would certainly go watch it.
Yeah,
that'd be fascinating.
Boy, I'm looking back through what remains of our Facebook messages, and there's nothing before like 20, because like they changed the whole system at some point. Like there's nothing before 2015. It was a long time ago. But I know because I just remember thinking that was the most fascinating thing I had ever heard, and that I had moved back to Utah, and like you were this wealth. Like, because you've been living in Utah your whole adult life, you were this wealth of interesting
Inside information.
Yeah. Inside information. Yeah.
Oh, I've got so much inside information. We'll have to do another podcast sometime.
Oh yeah, I'm here for it. Well, thank you both so much. I really appreciated
thank you
the fountains of knowledge that you both are on Alice.
Well, it's really, it's fun. It's nice. It's nice to have book friends. Like Helen has given me some great recommendations over the years, and so this is just perfect that we are here.
Yes,
we are here.
Yeah. And if there's ever a book that has been banned or challenged on your reading list and you want to talk about it, please reach out and let me know.
We could be recurring guests.
Yes.
That'd be awesome.
I'd love that. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks,
Thank
Eden.
you.
Thanks, Carrie.
So much fun. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Burn This Book was produced by us, Eden and Nicole. Music was written by Nicole and performed by her dad, Frank.